पहले गेहूं, चावल, दही, लच्छी, छाछ इस पर भी टैक्स लगता था। आज ये सब जीएसटी के बाद टैक्स फ्री हो गए।
कर्ड, लस्सी, बटर मिल्क, पनीर, इसके ऊपर 0% जीएसटी था। आज उसको बढ़ा के इन्होंने 18% तक जीएसटी को ले जाने का काम किया है।
The government of India is in the midst of a massive storm, following its decision to hike the goods and services tax, that's GST, on numerous items. The 47th GST Council meeting, which was held last month, made many recommendations related to the GST rates on goods and services, which the government implemented on July 18th. On July 1st, 2017, when GST was launched in India, it was touted to be a pro-people reform. The government told the public that the consumer was at the center of this reform. MSMEs were told that they would gain significantly because of GST. But the increase in GST, especially on essential commodities and services, is now threatening to stretch household budgets and affect the common man. Let's unbreak this news. GST, the goods and services tax, in the words of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, is a path-breaking legislation for New India. Launched on July 1st, 2017, the goods and services tax was meant to achieve the objective of one nation, one tax. The government marketed the concept of GST by saying that before 2017, India had an indirect tax regime that was highly fragmented. This was true to a large extent, as the centre and states were levying taxes separately on goods and services. There was no uniformity. There were multiple taxes like excise duty, service tax, VAT, CST, purchase tax, entertainment tax, and the likes. So the government said it had brought in the path-breaking tax system GST to have a single tax, simple tax, and a transparent tax.
हाँ, अब ठीक है। देखिए, सही तस्वीर जानने के लिए ट्रांसपेरेंसी बहुत जरूरी है। तो भैया अभी तक इतने सारे इनडायरेक्ट टैक्सेस लगते आए और आपको बिल में दिखता है सिर्फ वैट, पर अब लगेगा सिर्फ एक टैक्स, जीएसटी। ये उन सब टैक्सेस की जगह है जो आप पे तो करते हैं पर देख नहीं पाते। इसलिए जीएसटी, सिंगल टैक्स, सिंपल टैक्स, ट्रांसपेरेंट टैक्स।
So is this tax system single, simple, and transparent? Has the government kept its words? The government's fact sheet on GST states the government has progressively lowered tax rates on essential and daily use items. A finance ministry study suggested that consumers saved at least 4% on their household monthly expenses on an aggregate after GST. Thus, consumers now spend less on daily consumables like cereals, edible oils, sugar, sweets, and snacks. Consumer gains with reduced tax burden on items of consumption. And most importantly, the government document says GST is a pro-people reform. Hence, the consumer is at the center of this reform. So, is GST a pro-people reform? Is the consumer at the center of this reform? Here are some of the essential items and services for which the government has hiked GST, which came into effect on July 18th. According to the new rules, pre-packaged and labelled pulses and cereals like rice, wheat and flour will now attract 5% GST when branded and packed in a unit container. Curd, lassi and puffed rice would attract GST at the rate of 5% when pre-packaged and labelled. GST for petroleum, coal bed, methane has been hiked from 5 to 12%. Power-driven pumps, primarily designed for handling water such as centrifugal pumps, deep tube well turbine pumps, submersible pumps, bicycle pumps, from 12 to 18%. Machines for cleaning, sorting or grading seed, grain pulses, machinery used in milling industry or for the working of cereals, etc. Pavan chakki, that is air-based atta chakki, wet grinder, from 5 to 18%. Solar water heater and system from 5 to 12%. Job work in relation to manufacture of clay bricks from 5 to 12%. Works contract for roads, bridges, railways, metro, effluent treatment plant, crematorium from 12 to 18%. Works contracts supplied to central and state governments, local authorities for historical monuments, canals, dams, pipelines, plants for water supply, educational institutions, hospitals, etc. Subcontractor thereof from 12 to 18%. This essentially means that you will have to pay more for household items. Even the rates for bank services and hotel stays have been increased. But the irony of the latest GST hike is this. Healthcare will become more expensive now with GST on all non-ICU hospital rooms that cost more than 5,000 rupees a day will be levied a 5% GST. But the GST on cut and polished diamonds has only increased from 0.25% to 1.5%. Immediately after the announcement, the opposition and several political party leaders were up in arms against the government. This is CPM leader Thomas Isaac saying, "The imposition of 5% GST on items of common consumption like grains and curd that were so far exempted is regressive. Tax on packed grains below 75 kg will result in the increase of prices of grains sold in retail. Withdraw tax on necessities and increase tax on luxuries." This is Congress leader Renuka Chaudhary. If you are brought into this world on a hospital bed, you pay 5% GST. If you die on a hospital bed, you pay 5% GST.
कर्ड, लस्सी, बटर मिल्क, पनीर, इसके ऊपर 0% GST था। आज उसको बढ़ा के इन्होंने 18% तक GST को ले जाने का काम किया है। गुड़, अगर गरीब परिवार और कुछ नहीं कर सकता है तो रोटी और गुड़ मिला के बच्चे को देते हैं, उसके ऊपर भी GST बढ़ा दिया।
From hospital beds to hotel rooms to crematoriums, the government has hiked the GST substantially. The ongoing monsoon session in Parliament has already started seeing protests and disruptions over the new tax system. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman sent out a series of tweets to further clarify the intent of the government. She tweeted that these items, that is pulses, dal, wheat, rye, oats, maize, rice, atta flour, suji rava, besan, puffed rice, curd, lassi, if they are sold loose and not pre-packed or pre-labeled, will not attract GST. She then went on to say, taking this into account, when GST was rolled out, a GST rate of 5% was made applicable on branded cereals, pulses, flour. Later, this was amended to tax only such items which were sold under registered brand or brand on which enforceable right was not foregone by the supplier. However, soon rampant misuse of this provision was observed by reputed manufacturers, brand owners, and gradually GST revenue from these items fell significantly. This was resented by suppliers and industry associations who were paying taxes on branded goods. They wrote to the government to impose GST uniformly on all packaged commodities to stop such misuse. This rampant evasion in tax was also observed by states. It is in this context that the GST Council in its 47th meeting took the decision. With effect from July 18, 2022, only the modalities of imposition of GST on these goods was changed, with no change in coverage of GST except 2 to 3 items. But does this clarification help? Whatever the context may be, ultimately it is the Aam Aadmi, the common man, who's paying the price. The GST hike comes at a time when inflation was already pinching people's pockets. For the first time ever, the value of the Indian rupee plunged to a record low and breached the 80 mark against the dollar. The latest GST hike will only add to the common man's woes.
ये बड़े दुख की बात है। एक तरफ पूरा देश महंगाई से जूझ रहा है, बहुत ज़्यादा महंगाई हो गई है पूरे देश के अंदर, और दूसरी तरफ केंद्र सरकार ने जो खाने पीने की वस्तुएं थी उन पे भी आज टैक्स लगा के उनको महंगा कर दिया है। मैं मांग करूंगा केंद्र सरकार से कि ये जो खाने पीने की चीज़ों पे GST लगाया गया है इसको वापस लिया जाए।
The GST regime, which was supposed to make the taxation system single, simple and transparent, is no longer serving its stated purpose. With multiple tax ratios and changes, it is no longer a single tax. There are too many slabs changed too many times within a single tax ratio system. It is no longer simple. Traders have already started protesting and are demanding further clarifications. And it's no longer transparent, as the government had launched GST saying that the consumer was at the center of this reform policy. Going by what the government had initially assured, it seems it was not after all transparent with the people. The present GST system is unfair and unreasonable and is going to be an added burden on India's poor and middle class citizens and must be revisited in the interest of the Aam Aadmi.